School districts across the state, across the area and the state, tell me they're not exactly sure yet what this is going to mean for them. Parents say this spells relief squared. Melissa Bodart summed up the mean feelings about Common Core.
When you could go from here to here, you go from here all the way around to get here.
She gave Governor DeSantis' announcement an A.
Let's just try to get this right. We want to be very high quality. We want to demand excellence, but I think we want to do that in a way that's responsive to some of the concerns that we've had.
The governor said he heard concerns from parents like Bodart who had a hard time helping kids with homework, particularly math. The state will spend a year rewriting the textbook to lessen emphasis on tests and beef up civics education.
We're sending some of these students out that they're not only prepared for a career or prepared for higher education, but they're prepared to discharge the duties of citizenship.
Districts reacted carefully. Hillsborough said it looks forward to working with the state. Pasco said the governor should consider the amount of time and funding that have already been spent on getting staff up to speed. Polk and Manatee said they needed more time to discuss. Hillsborough's teachers union wasn't sure either.
A little bit of surprise and also interest to see what they're being replaced with. I do know that Common Core's had some ups and downs.
Common Core was developed by a group of nonprofits and at least partially backed by over 40 states after the Obama administration offered incentives. Florida passed its own standards in 2014 with then Governor Scott pledging his own rewrite of the education codes.
I really want to have an apolitical curriculum. I don't want this to where we're trying to smuggle in, kind of modern day partisan politics. That's not what this is about. The changes to the state education system are going to be presented to the state legislature in 2020, which means that no changes are taking effect right away.
Hey y'all, one more again, this is your man, the Black Patriot. And today, as you just saw in the previous video that just played, Governor DeSantis, the newly elected Governor DeSantis, signed an executive order to end Common Core in the state of Florida. Now, what does that mean? We're going to get into that and break down the issue with Common Core and my opinions about Common Core that a lot of people did not know or understand. A lot of people didn't even know Common Core came into an existence until it started coming up the last 3 or 4 years and the big talk about it. But we'll get into it right after this. All right, welcome back. So let's talk about this Common Core bit. All right, let's talk about this Common Core bit. Common Core, as we know, is the national education standard that Obama implemented when he was in office, right? It actually started with the NGA. If you don't know who the NGA is, that's the National Governors Association. And the one of the former governors, Janet Napolitano, she was the governor of Arizona, all right? And she was the chair of the NGA at this time, which she now, I think if I remember correctly, she leads the University of California education system, and as far as that's concerned. But she started writing these initiatives to try to get education uniform across the board to what we have today. Now, as you saw in the video, like 40 states voted for this Common Core because it seemed comprehensive, and it seemed like the blanket helped everybody across the board. And there's a lot of problems with that for many reasons, right? Each state, each region of the country has different needs as far as education concerned, what they, what people need to educate more on, per se. And certain states have certain needs. And if you're going to try to keep your students to go to school in state or get jobs and careers in state, we can't have a blanket across the board, because that creates a deficiency across the board when it comes to education. Everybody's on the same level, right? And that kind of goes back to something I always say: equal opportunity, equal outcome. And this is exactly what Common Core does. Now, there's many things the federal system has done with education to try to make it a level playing field, starting with the No Child Left Behind with Bush. That was a bad thing because, we know those folks that are my age that grew up during that era, a lot of kids were passed on and didn't have the education, didn't, pass the test, etc., to move on to the next grade. Okay. And now Common Core is kind of a double down on No Child Left Behind. Right. I mean, Common Core, especially when it comes to math, has you doing these all off the wall kind of things to get the same resolution I could do in 4 or 5 pencil strokes. And it makes no sense. It just makes no sense at all when it comes to that. Now, I'm going to give you my reasons why Common Core is just bad across the board. First of all, if you're a constitutionalist, you understand that Common Core is strictly a federal takeover of education, right? The ultimate goal of Common Core is to have every single school district follow the same national standards. And as I said before, this is a failed approach when it comes to education because it undermines education quality and education choices, okay? Now, states and local communities better know, like I said, what's going on in their community and what the children need, right? And it takes the families out of the equation, right? It kind of handcuffs your state school boards because they know it's good for their people, but they got to follow these standards. You know what I mean? The second thing, it's completely bad for parents, right? Because parents won't say, they want to say in their education, right, under Common Core, but they will not be able to suggest any changes to the local school standards, right? Because it's set in stone what the standards are, right? And it doesn't matter if the parents want to take the kids out of the schools and move them around. It's still the same, right? So it limits the liberty of the families to be able to make better choices for education for their, for their children, right? The third biggest thing that bothers me with this is it's also bad for teachers in this regard because teachers have little control over the classrooms under Common Core, all right? They'll be forced to comply with these made up standards by some federal bureaucrat that we don't even elect, right? The Secretary of Education. In this case, it would be Betsy DeVos, right? And it leaves no room for teachers to be kind of innovative with the curriculum and the lesson work. It's just got to be boom, boom, boom. Or you have children in classes, everybody learns at a different rate or a different style. And this limits the teachers from kind of doing this. Right. So it's you see, it's harmful in both ways. My next point with Common Core is the taxpayers, the taxpayers. All right. It's a huge price tag. Right. I was looking at some figures. All right. I got them right here somewhere. OK, here they are. Washington State. OK. Washington State Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction estimates that Common Core will cost the state $300 million a year. Okay. The California Department of Education estimates it will cost $759 million to implement all the nationalized standards. Okay. Common Core is going to cost us a lot of money, but it's not going to improve any type of education quality, right? The fifth thing I have in this is it's bad for the students, right? It's bad for the students because, again, just like Bush's No Child Left Behind, right? This is a Common Core is a one size fits all, and it assumes, as I said before, every student learns at the same pace. This top down and centrally controlled standards on on education in general hurts students' creativity and it hurts their learning process, right? A good education policy, okay, realizes that all students have different learning styles, preferences, paces, etc. when it comes to this. So to limit to this blanket education is harmful, obviously more harmful than most. Like for me, for example, I am a visual learner. I'll read something and I get it faster than you trying to tell me what it is, right? And some people are completely the opposite. You know what I mean? They want to hear it and then they get it, right? Now, me personally, if I read something, then I hear it, then I get it. But I would rather sit down and read it. That way you don't have a voice trying to impose or emphasize what's actually important. That's why I've always preferred reading than trying to listen to someone, okay? Another thing a lot of people did not know about Common Core is that it violates the Fourth Amendment, okay? Now, with this, the race to the top grants that's put into this Common Core program violates privacy by data mining, okay, information about students, and it follows you for the rest of your life, kind of almost like that social report card kind of deal that they're doing in China. This kind of emulates that, right? The information collected is just more than test scores and academic process, right? Common Core will track information like religious practices, political beliefs, sexual behaviors and attitudes, and whatever else that's in your private life will be recorded. Now, why would people want to advocate for this? I have no idea. But we see right now that's obviously one violation of the Constitution alone, right? Besides the federal takeover of education, all right? And I'll get into that part in a second, all right? Now, Common Core, as I explained before, the No Child Left Behind, right, kind of deal, right, like kind of teaching the test kind of deal, and that's basically how it was. Is they taught you to take your, in Florida, for example, you had your EST, which is your essential skills test. Those of you, my folks in Florida, or I went to school with in Florida, you remember what I'm talking about. You had your EST test and your SAT test. You had to pass the EST test to even be promoted to the next grade. The SAT really didn't mean too much, which is the standard aptitude test. The same it is for college, okay? But it's the exact resemblance. It just has, like I said, a different packaging to it. One of my last points for we end this, Common Core is unconstitutional because there is nothing in the Constitution that says government needs to control education. Hence, the federal government is overstepping the 10th Amendment and just implementing what they want. Okay? That's federal overstep on the Constitution is a huge, a lot of you that know me, is a huge problem for me. It's a huge problem. Federal government needs to stay in their place where they belong. Not in our lives in the way we run our lives out here. But people are so quick to look to the federal government for a voice when your voice should be in the state legislature making sure these things happen. Now, Common Core, it also made some states go backwards in their education, right? Some states have advanced standards that are designed with students and parents in mind, okay? I was looking at a report from this professor from the University of Arkansas. Her name is Sandra Stotsky, and I have the quote right here. She served on a committee to validate Common Core standards. She said the standards dumb American education down by about 2 grades worth. That's pretty strong. And she's got a valid point, right? Some states would have to, like I said, move their standards backwards to comply with Common Core. So it kind of tells you where we're going. And you notice how the children that have been coming up, it's been harder for them, per se, because it's not necessarily the education is harder. It's how the teachers have to teach it and they can't be flexible with it. And it makes our children even dumber at this point. Okay. And last but not least, my final opinion on this Common Core situation, Washington has tried this time and time again. Centralized education has not worked, will never work ever. The quality of education over the last 50 years has totally, completely declined. Okay. The solution to this whole thing is to get government out of the way completely and let the states determine what they need in their state. That's just clear and simple, because who else knows what the people need than the people right here, boots on the ground, the state, your local municipalities, your local school districts. They know what their children need because they get the input from their parents, and that's how it should be. So I'll pose a question for you. If you like Common Core, explain to me why. If you oppose Common Core, give me your reasons why. If you have another idea for an education system, please let me know. You can put all that down in the comment box down below down there, and I respond to all comments, messages, etc., and we can have a calm discussion about this. So if you like what you've heard, please like, rate, comment, and share this video on all your social media, on your website, refer it to your friends, etc. Okay. And until next time, and in grace and in liberty, God bless you and God bless America. Until next time.